Just welcome everyone here today for the agenda briefing session. We will declare the meeting open at 4:04. Members of the public are advised that recommendations to council contained within this agenda can be subject to alterations. Applicants and other interested parties should refrain from taking any action until such time as written advice is received confirming council's decision with respect to any particular issue. Any statement or insinuation of approval regarding any planning or development application made during an agenda briefing session meeting is not to be taken as notice of approval from the Shire. The Shire advises that anyone who has an application lodged with the Shire must obtain and should only rely on written confirmation of the outcome of the application and any conditions attached to the decision made by council regarding the application. An audio and or visual record will be made of these proceedings to assist in the taking of minutes. Acknowledgement of country. The Shire of Harvey acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land and their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. And we pay our respects to all members of the Aboriginal communities and their cultures and to elders both past and present. Item 2, record of apologies and leave of absence. We have an apology from Councillor Lovett and Councillor Simpson. Item 3, declarations of members and officers' personal interest. We have Councillor Beach.
Thank you, Mr. President. Item 5.3.1, proposed dog kennels. The applicant is known to me and is a colleague in another organisation I belong to. It's a impartiality interest and I'll stay in chambers and vote on its merits. Well, I won't be voting today, but I'll stay in the chambers for the discussion. And item 5.5.2, Harvey Recreation Ground Drainage Project. I'm the chair of the Sport and Rec Advisory Group and I'm also a member delegate to the Harvey Recreation Cultural Centre Advisory Group. Again, impartiality, and I'll stay in the chambers for the discussion.
Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to declare impartiality on 5.1.1, the Yarloop STEM Workshop Interpretation Centre Tender Recommendation. I'm Council Delegate for the Yarloop Workshop Committee. Also 5.5.1, the Leisure Centre Court Expansion Project. I'm the Council Delegate on the LLC Advisory Group and also the Court Expansion Advisory Group for LLC. And also 7.1.1 Destination Harvey Region. I'm the Council Delegate on the Harvey Visitor Centre. Thank you. I'll stay in chambers.
Councillor Burgon.
Two declarations, both financial. 5.2.5 tender T082021 Trent intersection upgrade. One of the tenders is a company owned by my employer. The other one, which is also financial, is 5.3.3, deals with proposed extractive industry licence, which my employer is also involved with. So I'll declare those both and leave chambers while discussions take place.
And I too have an impartiality interest in 5.5.2 Harvey Rec Ground Drainage. So I'm Council Rep on Harvey Rec Cultural Centre, so I will stay in chambers and vote on its merits. Okay. Item 4, deputations. And I'll just note, Joe, that we only do deputations at the briefing. So would you like to do your question at the council meeting?
Yes.
Unless you want to roll it into a deputation.
That's fine.
All good? Okay, so Amy, would you like to do your deputation?
Good afternoon, President, councillors and Shire staff. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Amy Capagreco. I'm 26 years of age and I'm an active member of the Harvey community. I have lived in Harvey all my life. I come from a family that is passionate about our community, and we are all volunteers of some sort. I'm a volunteer of the Harvey Ambulance. My love for animals steered me in towards a certificate in animal studies and in Murdoch, which has given me the skills to manage a boarding kennel. The hands-on training at Murdoch, TAFE, and many hours of work experience at the veterinary clinic has given me the confidence to run a successful business. My partner and I purchased the land on lot 123, number 274, 8th Street, Harvey in March 2020. Our plans for the land was to start a boarding kennel business and to live a sustainable lifestyle. Before we purchased the property, I asked the Shire staff if the land was zoned correctly for the boarding kennels. The Shire officer spoke with me and confirmed that the zoning was correct. I have read the agenda item 5.3.1 and can confirm that the planned business will be adequately relevant for concerns which has been arisen from the advising period. Item 1. In regards to the noise created by the barking dogs, the business will be constructed with the soundproofing walls and screening to contain occasional barking. I intend to be present all the time, and I have customers' dogs in the kennels and will be making sure they are exercised and socialised to minimise the noise. Item 2. The odour. The health and hygiene of the dogs will be a high priority to me. The kennels will be cleaned twice daily and all waste will be removed off the property via the council FOGO bins. Item 3. Additional traffic. I respectfully ask the council how much traffic is deemed excessive. Item 4. Dogs escaping. As per the submitted plans, all kennels will be double fenced, minimising the chance of dogs escaping. I mean no disrespect, but the 4 items that have been formed on assumptions only, and there is no evidence of any of the above that can or will occur or would implicate close neighbours. In regards to the EPA guidelines, there is 2 facilities already in Harvey which do not meet the 500 metre buffer. One being the Harvey Shire Dog Pound that is very close to the nearest house and not 500 metres from Crujicup Height Estate. The veterinary clinic on 9th Street also houses dogs, is very close to the neighbours also. We have a veterinary clinic on Uduck Road that is not currently in operation but has been renovated to house animals, and that is right in the middle of housing. After discussion with Mr. Brendan Kelly from the Department of Water and Environmental Regulation, he has assured me that the document listed in the agenda is only a guide and is not intended to be absolute. Even though adjoining lots can be characterised as lifestyle blocks, the land we purchased zoned is intensive farming and under the Shire District Planning Scheme number 1. As pointed out earlier, the confirmation of the Shire officer, we purchased the land intentioned of a proposed boarding kennels to provide a much needed service to the Harvey community and surrounding districts, which will benefit the tourism and generate the business in the town. I have letters of support from local accommodation businesses which I have also tabled, because these accommodation types do not accept pets and they are thrilled to have somewhere close that customers can utilise and still be able to visit Harvey with their pets. I personally do not believe that my proposed boarding kennels will have the potential to negatively impact the quality of life to the community as assumed in the report. I have conducted a survey within my area and have found that I have many people that support my business. It is not my intention to disrupt and cause negative impact in my community. That's far from what I have planned. My proposed business has generated much interest in the Harvey Shire and surrounds. People's pets are family members and require a safe and modern facility that gives owners the confidence in leaving their pets in my care. I only have positive intentions and not negative ones. In closing, I respectfully request that the decision of the of the councillors is not based on assumptions, but on my plans and procedures developed after consultation with the Shire staff. This is my dream business, and I intend to make it a successful one and provide a high standard facility to the dog owners. Thank you for listening. Is there any questions?
Any questions? Councillor Beach.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity. I've been listening to you, Amy, and I've read the report thoroughly, and also the objections that we've received, and I'm just wondering how amenable you would be for council to consider, if they consider this proposal worthy of support, to reduce the number of animals that you take in your application. I think it's 10 in memory, and as a trial maybe 5 or 6, and then if there was no complaints you could probably apply for, and I don't know whether that's something that the planning department can actually entertain, but I'm just wondering what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah. I'm happy to just limit my numbers for this first 6 months to see how my business runs. And plus, I'm not going to have that many dogs at once. It's very hit and miss business, and it depends. I might be busy on the weekends, but I'm happy to trial for 6 months and have just 5 dogs in my kennels as a total number, and then see how we go from there.
Thank you.
Councillor Burgoyne.
Probably not a question to Ms. Caporeco, but part of the complaining during the advertising period was noise created by barking dogs of the 4 that you've already got. Is there any official complaints, or is that just as a response to the advertising?
Through Mr. Chairman, look, I'm not aware of any official ones. Maybe the Rangers might have a clearer idea on that, but I do know during the advertising of that application to keep the 4 dogs, that is when the issue was first raised.
Okay. No more further questions? Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
Another deputation on item 5.5.2, Mr. Rowan Morrison.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, councillors and staff, for the opportunity to provide comment to item 5.5.2, the Harvey Recreation Ground Drainage Project. I'm here in my capacity as the Vice President of the Harvey Benja Cricket Club. We're one of the primary users of the Harvey Recreation Ground. Harvey Benja Cricket Club welcomes improvements to the drainage of the Harvey Recreation Ground and recognises the opportunities to accommodate a range of sporting, recreation and community users into the future for Harvey. Over the last 20 years, the club has built up infrastructure within the Harvey Recreation Ground precinct, which includes the turf wicket, 4 cricket nets and a storage shed, including equipment to maintain the turf wicket on a continual basis. The recently adopted Harvey Recreation Ground Master Plan is proposing for this infrastructure to be removed. Whilst we're comfortable with our current location, we recognise and welcome the Harvey Hawks Soccer Club moving to the Harvey Recreation Ground to share the northern section with cricket. It makes sense to co-locate and share grounds that operate principally in opposite seasons. To achieve this, our club accepts having to dig up one of the finest turf wicket blocks outside of the metropolitan area and replace it with a new block. We're comfortable if the new turf block was located 10 metres to the east of the current turf wicket block and drain the eastern side of the Harvey Recreation Ground as per attachment 2, also referred to as option 1B. Through our fundraising efforts for the facility, we have a strong connection with the boundary rooms and its location. Council approved the location of the facility as part of this development, and a key component was its proximity to the current turf wicket. The facility in part was designed with the volunteers for all sports in mind. From our perspective, the location of the kitchen area is critical to engaging volunteers. They have great access to view the game whilst being able to volunteer on match day. We've had representatives from the WACA visit the facility and have commented on the outstanding facility for viewing cricket. The report, under final comments on page 84, it states, there has been a significant trend in the southwest and greater southern regions to separate playing fields between sporting codes. This is primarily driven through the inclement weather conditions impacting on playing surfaces that carry more than one sporting code. With reference to the Harvey Recreation Ground, in 1998, both AFL, Cricket and the Council resolved this issue when the turf wicket was installed. It was installed such that the turf wicket was outside the football playing area so that the mud clay would not be a hindrance to football players or the playing surface for cricket. In relation to sharing playing fields between sporting codes, Cricket and AFL have shared the section of the Harvey Recreation Ground for the last 20 years. If cricket and soccer can share the northern end of the oval, then we do not see any issue with continuing the arrangement with AFL, as any conflict of fixturing can be accommodated by day-to-day management of the oval. There has not been to date and never will be a situation where cricket and football will be played at the same time, even if there are separate ovals as per option 1A. The club does not see significant benefit from the complete separation of AFL and cricket playing surfaces, especially when considering additional costs that would be associated with facilitating this separation. This position of the Harvey Benja Cricket Club is in line with the ABV Harvey Recreation Ground Needs Assessment report. Harvey Benja Cricket Club is supportive of finding the best outcome of the Harvey Recreation Ground for all users, remains supportive of sharing the playing space with the Harvey Hawks Soccer Club, but also wants to maximise the utilisation of the boundary, especially for the vitally important club volunteers. For these reasons, Harvey Benja Cricket Club supports option 1B for overlapping ovals, which will provide opportunity for Harvey Hawks Soccer Club to use the Harvey Recreation Ground and the boundary as a home while minimising the impact on cricket. However, if Council were to adopt option 1A for separate ovals, then as we presented in the ordinary meeting of Council April 2021, for the reasons outlined above, the Harvey Benja Cricket Club can accept Council moving and installing a new turf wicket that is 10 metres to the east and no more than 25 to 35 metres to the north. Further to this, if option 1A for separate ovals was supported by Council, Harvey Benja Cricket Club would like consideration to be made for the installation of a cricket pitch on the southern playing ground, nominally the AFL ground currently. This would ensure greater utilisation of the Harvey Recreation Ground and the boundary. It would provide a future benefit and enable us to hold double-header home matches or carnivals where multiple teams could utilise the Harvey Recreation Ground, thus eliminating the requirement to use the inadequate Harvey Primary School playing space. In relation to the report, we do seek clarification on the following points within item 5.5.2. Point number 1, the item makes reference to the cricket wicket moving 29 metres to the north, referred to as option C or option 1A in the attachment 1. However, the scale drawing for option 1A attachment 1, which does not have measurements, has the cricket wicket positioned 38 metres to the north. This was also came through in the most recent discussions around the Harvey Recreation Ground. Could officers please confirm the proposed measurements? And point 2, the conclusion on page 84 provides that option 1A, attachment 1, will address drainage issues at this site into the future and will leave a legacy for generations to come, and that not supporting this option will result in the playing surfaces being waterlogged during winter months, severely affecting the amenity of the sports ground. Our club's understanding is that both options, option 1A and 1B for separate or overlapping ovals, will have the same outcome to address the drainage and waterlogging of playing surfaces. Is this correct? Thank you again, councillors and staff, for the opportunity for our club to comment on item 5.5.2 for the Harvey Recreation Ground Drainage Project. My understanding is this deputation has also been sent through as an attached copy for review, and I'd be happy to take questions or comments.
Any questions? Councillor Birch.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation and sending through that. I read it just before I came down here, and I've still got the same questions I had when I read it. So,
Okay.
I just want to confirm, you're saying if council accepts option 1A, you want a cricket wicket within the playing surface of the AFL ground. We took the cricket wicket out of the AFL ground for a specific purpose, and that is during the winter time it becomes a mud bath, same as happened at the MCG many years ago. So are you proposing to put one back on that surface if 1A was the preferred option of this council?
We would like consideration to be made for that, as it would allow, so one of the benefits that has been proposed of the separation of ovals is the ability to complete works at separate times. That would potentially result in a loss of season for us, whereas we see if a hard wicket that could be covered or some other potential option were to be in place, we could continue to use that space, but it also further develops it that we can have consecutive home games or all those carnivals there. So whilst we understand that a turf wicket might not be suitable in that application, some form of hard wicket that could be covered over and recovered for the season may allow us to continue during works, but then also make future use of that space.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I've got one for Mr. Loxnigger. Well, I think it might be his area. The infrastructure that's on the grounds at the minute, that's the shed and the practice wickets and so forth up in that northeastern corner, that says in your presentation they're going to be removed, and I understand that's the case. But do they necessarily have to be moved for the drainage, or are they going to be moved because we want to create a better entry statement around that watercourse sump, if you like?
Yeah, look, through the chair, my understanding and looking at the plans is that the cricket practice nets will be remaining where they are, but some of the other infrastructure to accommodate soccer and drainage will have to be removed.
They will have to be removed
Some of the other,
regardless of...
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks, Ron.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to item 5.1.1, Yellow Steam Workshop Interpretation Centre tender recommendation. And just to alert councillors that there is a confidential late attachment pertaining to this.
Apologies, councillors, due to staff illness, we were not able to complete the attachment or distribute it with the agenda briefing documents, but realise you have had no time to look at it now, so if you have any questions, feel free to send those through, or they can be clarified at the council meeting, or alternatively taken on notice tonight.
Any questions or clarification? questions or queries, councillor, on 5.1.1? Councillor Jackson, any questions?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we dealt with the preferred tenderer or had any experience with that company previously.
Not that I'm aware on any Shire projects, however they have been evaluated through externals with our own internal manager special projects, and referee checks have been undertaken in regards to their quality of work and their financial standing.
So are they projects in the metropolitan area?
As the officer is not here tonight, I can't answer that question, but I can take it on notice.
Councillor Burgoyne, any queries or questions? Councillor Dickinson? Good. That one notice. Okay, item 5.1.2, Brunswick Junction Community Resource Centre lease renewal. Any questions or queries? Item 5.1.3, Australian Community Precinct Consultation Report. We'll move to after 5.5.4 as there is some confidential items to be discussed with that item, so we'll do that at that point in time.
What, sir?
So we'll move the item 5.1.3 to after 5.5.4. Just before we move into behind closed doors.
Thank you.
Item 5.1.4, Harvey Community Precinct Consultation. One question from Councillor Beach.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I'm just curious as to when the amended plan is received back from our consultants after all the feedback that's been received. Is that going to be made available to the community and all the stakeholders, just so that everybody knows that their concerns, their submissions have been looked at the very least, and that it's been captured as to what the community of Harvey actually wants in that particular precinct, rather than just taking as a, you know, as read, there's the document, that's what you want.
Yes, through the provision of that information through to the architect, we will provide the amended master plan through to council for approval, and then go out to community viewing on those changes that have been made.
Excellent, thank you.
Any other questions? Item 5.2.1, application for exemption to keep more than the prescribed number of dogs. Questions? Item 5.2.2, application for exemption to keep more than the prescribed number of dogs. Any questions? Item 5.2.3. Financial. 5.2.5. Okay. Tender T052021, supply and delivery of gravel base course. Any questions? Item 5.2.4, T072021, Treendale Estate landscaping revitalisation works. Any questions? Item 5.2.5 T082021 Treendale intersection upgrades. Any questions? No, I'll let you disappear, Councillor Bevan. Any questions? All good. Yeah. Councillor Burgoyne and over. Sorry, I had to brush your coffee. Item 5.3.1 Proposed dog kennel, lot 123, number 274, 8th Street in Harvey. Questions from Councillor Beach.
Thank you, Mr. President. My first question was about the separation distances, and I think it was asked in the deputation, but we haven't had the answer at the moment. My question about the separation distances for the industrial and sensitive land use, it's 500 metres. My question is this a mandatory or a guiding principle? And this, strangely enough, the same example has been used. The Shire Dog Pound is only 190 metres from its nearest resident, and I did a bit of a Google thing, and it's 370 metres from my place, but it doesn't cause me any problems with being in that distance. So my question is it mandatory or is it a guiding principle? The second question is, the land is zoned intensive farming, so I'm assuming that if the applicant was so minded, they could run cattle or sheep, perhaps even free-range pigs, I don't know. Could occupy that line without the need of operating procedures, hygiene regimes and buffers. Perhaps piggery might, but the other two certainly I wouldn't have thought so. And the third is probably a statement, but I'll turn it into a question. Being an intensive farming area, would it be fair to say that odours and flies are normal elements of such areas?
Over to you, Mr. Hall.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Sorry?
I did give notice on that.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. Look, the separation distances under the EPA guidelines are simply that, they're a guideline. They're not a hard and fast mandatory requirement. There is no such buffer in place that requires that. And it comes down to scale and intensity. So I can sort of answer all in one, the first two, in terms of, no, it's not a statutory buffer, but the nearest resident is actually about 80 metres from it. So when you have a recommendation at 500 metres and a proposal that is 80 metres, that's quite a substantial variance from the recommended one. And I do appreciate that the applicant is doing over and above what a lot of other places would do in terms of the standard of construction, the method of management, and potentially the reduction of numbers. If that was the case, we would need to bring an alternative report to Council to address that. But we all know separation distances are quite a hotly contested issue in this Council, but from 500 down to 80 is quite a substantial departure. And as far as other domestic, other cattle, sheep, pigs, scale and intensity as well. So if we saw that there was land degradation or an impact from an increase in odour, soil erosion, we would refer the matter to Ag Department. And under the Soil Conservation Act, there are opportunities to have management plans put in place to actually address and reduce the number and the scale of impact on the site. So it would be not all land uses, like if they would run cattle on there or run pigs on there, it's not a use that requires an approval, but there are management obligations that they would have to have. As far as the Shire's dog pound, yeah, look, I'm not too sure what process that went through.
Probably historical.
Yeah, look, as far as flies and odours are concerned, look, we have stable flies being a major issue that has always caused us some concern, albeit a completely different cause, like stable fly aren't actually an outcome of dog kennels. The method of animal sort of manure management in terms of the use of FOGO bins, I can't see that being unreasonable, but at this stage, yeah, we haven't. There's no sort of formal management plan in place, and I think cleaning out twice a day wouldn't be an unreasonable request to keep that down. So.
Councillor Bromwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to clarify. The applicant said that she had approached the Shire staff prior to the purchase of the property, and that at that time she had been told that the area was zoned appropriately for the business that she's suggesting that she should put in place. And I was just wondering if I could get staff comment on that. Was that in writing? Or?
I would need to check if it was in writing, but I'd be disappointed if my staff said that it couldn't be considered, because a dog kennel is actually a use that can actually be considered in this zone. Now, an intensive farming zone, you have, again, scale of and intent of the number of dogs. You also have different size properties as well, where separation distances can actually be achieved. So to say that an officer advised that the property was suitably zoned, therefore automatically transfers into the capacity to actually approve that, is a big leap. You would need to actually assess the application like it has been done on its merits and based on the approval process that it's gone through, as to whether or not it is actually an appropriate use for that particular site, not necessarily that zone. So,
thank you.
Councillor Campbell.
Thanks, Mr. President. Can we also confirm whether there's actually been any formal complaints that have been lodged, or is it just the complaints that have been raised through the objections?
Yeah, most definitely, but I just need to caution Council on that, is that the activity doesn't exist. So there will never be any formal complaints against the proposed land use, but the complaints would be against the 4 dogs that exist already. Yes. So yes, okay. And it would be, yeah. The thing is, if we receive the formal complaint with regard to dog noises and barking and stuff, there is actually a process that would need to be gone through as well, and our first response would be, thanks for your complaint, but you would actually need to submit bark diaries and actually go through an extensive process to actually try and validate those complaints. So I'll look into it and see what correspondence has been had. But yeah, the manager of Rangers, who looks after the dogs, might be able to provide us a bit more information on that.
Mr. Jones, welcome.
Thanks, Council. Probably councillors might recall about 2 or 3 meetings ago, there was an application for more than the prescribed number of dogs on this property. As part of that process, there was an advertising system which we went through at the same time as when I believe the applicant for this item has also canvassed some of the neighbours. There were a couple of complaints received in regards to that application, but when there was an investigation undertaken and when the rangers went to the property, these issues were resolved at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any questions of Councillor Bromwell?
Yes, President. Can you elaborate how they were resolved? Resolved is?
Through the chair. Probably the best way of doing it, a lot of times people don't realise there's actually an issue with an animal until it's actually brought to attention. So what was the issue was, I think maybe, I can't 100% exactly remember the details, but I believe it was about barking and the movement of the animals on the property. I believe that when the rangers went to the property and spoke to the owner of the property, that these things were put in place to resolve those issues, and those actions were have satisfied the people who made the complaints about those dogs for that application.
Okay. Item 5.3.2, Proposed Standard Scheme Amendment number 127, Hope Christian College, Government Road, Rowlands. Any questions? Item 5.3.3, Proposed Extractive Industry, Sand, Lot 2, Goss Road, Uduck. There's probably no questions. Councillor Burgoyne, nothing will be discussed. Is there any questions?
Don't need another coffee.
Did you get milk in that one or not?
It does.
Okay. Okay, no questions. Item 5.3.4, Development Application Overheight Retaining Walls. Any questions? Councillor Beach?
Yeah, I was just wondering, in the recommendation, did we put an advice note in there about the anti-graffiti spray? I can't remember, yes.
That was an addendum that was presented, Council, to the previous meeting of including that, and it appears that I have overlooked putting that in this report, so I shall do the same again, sir.
What, overlook it or put it
no,
in?
bring an addendum back to Council to include it, and it was that the applicant be advised that
yeah, it was
graffiti coding is probably an advisable thing to do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beach.
Not a problem. Keep him on his toes.
Any other questions? Okay, item 5.4.1, Financial Statements as at 31st of July 2021. Councillor Beach.
Yeah, I did. I had quite a statement really about the reserve accounts, and I know Mr. Winter has provided us with an amended insert, I guess, but when I was reading the report and checking it, it just happened to jump off the page, and that's how I managed, why I started the investigation that I did, that the Harvey Infrastructure Fund I knew had over $1 million in there, and the report was showing 700 and something thousand from memory, 781,000. So I went back to the August one, and it was a different figure again, and then the budget opening figures or closing figures were different. So I just floated off a email to Mr. Winter for a question. So rather than going through the whole thing, you might want to give me the answer or keep counsel the answer.
Thank you, Councillor Beach, and through you, Mr. President. When we produced the statement of reserves, there was a mismatch in account numbers. So you would see, for example, the Harvey Infrastructure Reserve, as you say, displayed 781,000, where the actual balance is on a separate line, and so the titles and the numbers didn't actually match. So we've produced a correct statement which shows the correct amount for the Harvey Infrastructure Reserve and all the other reserves. Now you also mentioned that there's a disparity between the different months and the balances shown in there. Because we haven't actually closed off the financial year, there is still inter-fund transfers happening, and they will continue to happen until the audit has been completed. In fact, at this stage I don't believe there'll be any more transfers, but we keep them open until the audit has been finalised. The previous statement that you looked at, showing the June balance, had a figure at the bottom for interest earned on reserves, and they hadn't actually been allocated to the different reserves. They have been allocated in this statement that you've received, and that's partly along with end-of-year reserve transfers, while the balances are different. But the statement that you had before you is correct as at this week.
Thank you.
Any other further questions? 5.4.1. Item 5.4.2, listing of accounts paid July 2021. We have a list of EFT payments. Would you like them just read out, Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. President. So the first EFT that is queried is EFT 55924, payout of a leased vehicle. And the question is, what was the vehicle? So it was the payout of a leased vehicle at the end of lease for the position of Director, Community and Lifestyle. That vehicle was then traded towards the new vehicle. So you've got the amounts there, but we end up trading that vehicle for $22,200. The next EFT is 56054, corporate business plan tables and chasing some commentary. So there were two areas in this account. The first was artwork, graphic styling and formatting of the corporate business plan. That was $4,000, and the balance of $2,100 was for artwork, graphic styling and formatting of the waste calendars that everyone receives, the ones with the magnets on the back. The next EFT is 56091, SAT expert witness, and the question was what case. That related to SAT conditions on extractive industry for lot 29 Treadrow Place, Myla, Carboni Brothers. The next one was EFT 56233, and the account says provide dinner feeling good, and it was relating to the Harvey Recreation and Cultural Centre, ticketed event, 56 people as part of the show, in brackets, feeling good. The next one, EFT 56268, underground power development. I can understand why you raised that one. So there were two areas in here. The first one is stage 1 underground power for lighting at Ditchingham Place and Grand Entrance. That was just over 4,000. And the second part of that was the same sort of thing, underground power for lighting at the Boulevard and Promenade. And I think that was all of those questions.
Postcode 6220 didn't feature that.
Sorry.
Any other questions on 5.4.2? Item 5.5.1, Leisure Centre Court Expansion Project. Any questions? Councillor Bromwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just noticed that there's the word anticipated is used. It says it is anticipated that council will receive project updates. I wondered if we could remove the word anticipated and that we actually get project updates as they go. Please.
It's fine, and it's not anticipated because here is a project update, so
yeah.
It's fine.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Any other questions? Item 5.5.2, Harvey Recreation Ground Drainage Project. We have Councillor Beach. Questions?
I've got a number of questions relating to this. How high is the proposed raising of the playing service intended to be? Are all stakeholders in favour of option 1A? And we heard cricket is with some sort of conditions. Will there be an impact on the 2022 Harvey show scheduled for April of this year? I'm not sure how valid this question is, but is there an opportunity to do the draining work, say in year 1, and then allow the turf to be re-established, and then reconfigure the playing services to accommodate AFL, cricket, soccer in year 2? And they may have to all be done at once, but I'll just get that. And I found this report quite complex. It was referring to one, you know, options 1A, attachment 1, and attachment 2 referring to option 1B, and I was just wondering whether or not we could align something so it just makes it easier reading. I was back and forth, might not be the sharpest knife in the box, I don't know, but just a question whether we could align some numbers to make it a bit easier to follow. But the first 4 questions are valid.
Mr. Loxnigger, would you?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Chair. Between the Director, Kirsty, and myself will answer the question. So look, how high is the Crow Service proposed to be? Obviously we need to do a bit more investigation there, because obviously there's the old trotting track. Whether we build up and leave the trotting track there depends on how high we go. Obviously we need to look at, you know, depending which option is decided upon, that's going to dictate whether the project's staged or whether it's all done in one hit. Whether it's like there's a central point and everything's lifted up from the central point and it grades off, or whether there's 2 points so we can stage it. You know, we're sort of basing it on an average of 300 mil over the site, so obviously it's higher in the middle and lower at the edges, so there might have to be some excavation. So all that needs to be looked at thoroughly in terms of a geotech report, in terms of where the trotting track is, and look at some design issues there. I mean, look, and I think what precipitated this was our final site meeting, which was just after the very, very wet winter we've had. And we were all just absolutely blown away by the state of the of the water on the pitch, and we realised that, you know, what we're proposing for the funds that are currently available really isn't going to be a long-term solution on that northern section and some of the other areas to accommodate soccer. So in answer to that question, that really needs to be determined. We were sort of looking at an average of 300 mils. It could be higher, that could be lower, depending if the, you know, depending on what earthworks. I will stakeholders are favour option A. I don't know if the Director would like to respond to that one. I don't believe so.
Thanks, Rick. Through the Chair. On page 79 of your report and in the minutes of attachment 4, you'll see that all stakeholders are in agreement of a need to complete the drainage project.
Oh, yes.
And that drainage is essential, and this is a historical issue. However, we don't have confidence that there is agreement from all stakeholders on the specifications of the playing fields.
So that's the separating playing surfaces.
Councillor Bronwyn.
Yeah, Mr. President, just wanted to ask this question. I think Councillor Beachy's touched on it, but to Mr. Loxnigger, the drainage issue has been going on since about 1952. I have the information. There was an issue when I was on council last time, 10 years ago, and there was a swamp in August that we all had to walk through. So my question is, will the actual plans you've got in place at the moment fix the issue permanently, or do we need to provide you with the resources to be able to achieve that?
Okay, yeah, thanks, Councillor. Look, through the Chair, the proposed outfall drainage on the perimeter of the turfed area needs to be done. I mean, we need to, there's inadequate drains at the moment to take water away. So we consider that will have benefit. However, given the fact that there's a very, very high groundwater there, and especially as was evidenced this winter, it's not going to solve the problem. But it will have to be done as part of the overall. I mean, obviously, if we lift them, improve subsoil drainage and whatnot, we'll have to connect to outlet pipes that can cater for that. So these outlet pipes on the perimeter have been designed to cater for any future improvements in terms of drainage, in terms of size pipes, gradients and whatnot. And as we all know, it's pretty flat and impervious in that area. It all relies on main drainage systems that head off out to the diversion drain and others. We believe that upgrading the outlet pipes is going to have to be done at some stage anyway, and we have got funding for that at the moment. So what we're recommending is that we proceed with that part of it and then further investigate the middle, how we're going to sort the rest of it out.
Okay, so my understanding from that is at the present time we don't have the resources to do the complete job, but we're going to put the outside pipes in that will take the water away, so then we can put pipes into the later on to drain to those pipes from the sports field. Yeah. Is that correct?
Well, there is existing subsoil there at the moment, but obviously it's not doing its job.
Yeah.
So the first thing, and we did the same at the Brunswick Oval, that was woeful during winter. We upgraded all the outlet pipes, and touch wood, we haven't had an issue there since we did that. Because initially we were just going to go and put new subsoil in over there. Then we investigate, okay, it's okay to put subsoil in, but where's it going to take water to? It's going to take water to substandard pipes that are, you know, either missing or, you know, too small or whatever, wrong gradients. So we did some substantial upgrades there. What we're proposing is to do something similar here. Obviously I think there will be some sort of benefit, but if you get a wet winter like we had this winter, it's not going to be the ultimate solution. So yes, we will need some more money.
Okay, thank you for your answer. Yeah, that's what I was really after. Unfortunately, I couldn't send you the question because the power was out of my place today, so I apologise for that. But I just wondered, given the fact we're going to need more money and we're looking at the forward plan, do we have the money in our budgets to do that in the future? I suppose that would be a question for Mr. Winter.
Thank you, through you, Mr. President. Look, quite frankly, I don't know what the figure is going to be until you know, those works that Rick's talking about are undertaken. There is a lot of works that Council has highlighted for the next few years, and we've already stated that we need to have an updated long-term financial plan that brings all that together. So, can Council do it? Yes, Council can do it. When? That needs to be factored into that long-term financial plan.
Thank you.
Councillor Beach.
Yeah, I've got two questions outstanding. I was usurped by my learned friend.
Oh, my apologies.
Can repeat them if you like.
Through the chair, thank you. I think the question was about the Harvey show.
Yep.
They have submitted their dates and approvals with us. The show is scheduled for the 22nd of April, and that has been factored in along with all the constraints of all the other user groups such as fixturing, etc., for consideration completing all works.
They'll be happening. Yeah. And the other one, could it be staged, Rick? Pretty much.
Yeah, look through the chair, depends what option we go for. If it's the overlapping option, it probably can't be staged. If it's the separate option, then we can do the north side first, build that up, subsoil range and whatnot, and then, you know, do the other, the southern side. That's the only way you could stage it, if that separated option is the preferred option.
So, just to follow up on that, would there be less disruption if it was staged than doing it all together?
Look, whatever we do there, there's going to be pretty major disruption.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's how we program it.
Which is the lesser of two evils, I guess.
Yeah, because obviously the separated option has a slightly smaller oval to the north. Oh, sorry, to the south. Been sitting next to Simon too long. So yeah, so with the smaller oval, that can still operate while the northern bit's getting done. Yeah, and but yeah, there is going to be some disruption, definitely.
Oh, I just wanted to know what was the lesser of two evils.
But the separation will cause less disruption than obviously if it still stays as a overlapping situation where you have to sort of go and do the earthworks.
Thank you.
Councillor Campbell.
Thanks, Mr. President. Being ex-army, I would really like to the opportunity to walk the ground. So, not being absolutely familiar with this, with the layout, and I know it's short notice, but is it possible that we could organise a time on Tuesday morning, Monday being a public holiday, to meet and actually get the opportunity to walk the ground and see what the proposal is, or the options, if that's possible?
Yeah, look, through the chair, most definitely. Depends on how everyone's calendar and diary. We did our final meeting on site. We actually pegged things out, some pegs and with the proposed cricket, with the extent of the oval and all that. We could probably look at, yeah, but we can organise something. Yeah.
Might just be me, but I'd just like the opportunity
Okay.
if I can.
Yeah, look, we can see what we can lock in.
Councillor Burgoyne.
Possibly a bit of devil's advocate here. I'm not sure if you know the answer. How long would it take to re-establish a turf wicket? And I ask that because if we were to separate the playing fields and that was deemed unsuitable, how hard would it be to move it back again?
Look, I'm not an expert in those types of wickets. We've got cricket club people here. Look, I know, you know, they're a very specialised piece of infrastructure. You need to get the right clay and this compaction and whatnot. Establish the turf over it. I don't know if someone from the cricket club might have that answer.
Thank you for the opportunity to comment again. It would be in the region of 12 months, so there's both a construction period and a bedding in period for a new wicket. Part of our submissions through the process has been to maintain our current wicket whilst the new wicket is installed in whatever location, so that we could continue to play for the maximum amount of time. Obviously, we're pretty vested in that happening as a club. So similarly, if it were to be unsuccessful or the new wicket were to have issues and moving back, you're looking at a similar length of time to go back in the 12 months and potentially across multiple seasons, 2 seasons, if that were the case.
Just on the final inspection, even the ducks had snorkels on them. The ground was that wet, so it was, yeah, it's been horrendous up that northern end, and I think that was everyone that was at the meeting. The amenity on the northern end was paramount with regards to getting that sorted out.
Yeah, look, through the chair, this might assist. The Director of Community Lifestyle and I have been having some discussions on this, because obviously it is a complex report and whatnot, and I agree with Councillor Beach in terms of the attachments. I suppose we're just focused on attachment 1A and 1B, and also there was an error in the report. Attachment 1B was actually referred as option D before, and also the option D, when you look at option D, that's the 38 metres that was discussed before. But anyway, so look, what we're saying is, what we're asking for here is, obviously the officer recommendation is to support an option. However, the only thing we'll be doing now is looking at implementing that outfall drainage. And what we've come up with is a plan to implement the ultimate outfall drainage that could accommodate both options, rather than the one that's contained in option 1A, which looks at the separated option. We're proposing a combination of 1A and 1B, which can accommodate both options. So what the recommendation is that we look at going out to tender for the outfall drainage that will accommodate both options, and then further investigate whether it's going to be the separated one, the other one, in terms of the staged implementation and the costs and all that, and bring that back to council. So if that helps in terms of what we're recommending in the report. Kirsty, did you have something there? And councillors, I have got a plan I can distribute that shows the 2 options superimposed with the drainage. I can take that out around now if you like.
No, I was going to hand it down for you.
If you need any clarification, I can walk you through it.
Please.
I think that would be good, Rick.
Okay, so if you look at the plan, it's basically option 1A and 1B superimposed on top of each other, and the thick red lines are looking at making sure that whatever option is chosen, the outfall drainage won't need to be altered. So you can see that if you look at the eastern side on Young Street, you can see the dark line and the red thin line. The red thin line is if option 1A or 1B or one of the options is chosen. But then you can see how the cricket oval has been moved further to the east. So the thick red line will accommodate that. So we're recommending that we do the thick red line now. On the south side, no change, both options. On the western side, no change for both options. And on the northern side, we're proposing to put the outfall drainage in for either one of those options, moving the cricket further to the north. You can see the thin red line and the thick red line. So we're proposing the thick red line goes in now, and then, as I mentioned, once we do all the further investigation and whatnot, we come back to council with progressing the options.
Councillor Burgoyne.
So if I'm listening correctly, and that may not be correct, but anyway, what you're saying is that the officer's recommendation 2, we're going to remove endorses option 1A, and we're just going to concentrate on the drainage now and come back again later with which option we want.
Yeah, we'll look through the chair. The report was a joint report between community and myself, and we did have a discussion whether we should, maybe there should be an amendment to that recommendation, and we don't endorse an option at this stage. We only approve proceeding with the outfall drainage and look at having that discussion when we get more information.
Is there any other further questions? All happy? Okay, item 5.5.3, Library Management System Continuation of Contract. Any questions? Item 5.5.4, Community Sporting and Recreational Facilities Fund, Harvey Golf Club. Any questions? Yeah. So, item 5.1.3, Australian Community Consultation Report. Councillor Beach.
Oh, yeah, okay. That's the one you shifted, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. I'm really going off the statistics that have been presented to us, but I know that less than a quarter of the respondents supported the Leisure Centre site, and yet it's the recommended site by staff. On page 100 of the attachments says a significant portion of the survey response indicated that the existing Australian site was the preferred location. So my question, I guess, is, after going through such an extensive survey, comprehensive survey, why would we want to dismiss approximately 50% of the respondents in favour of the site that approximately 78 of the respondents didn't want? And I think item 2 of my questions was about a site visit. I think that's been arranged, so thank you very much for taking that on board. And my number 2 question is, what evidence is the current site can be sold for the price mentioned at the workshop? Are there any developers interested in this site? I'm not going to handy figures around in an open forum.
Look, we'll start with the first question. And as part of that, the Australian Community Hubs options, which was a presentation back in June, is provided through to councillors in hard copy, and that will be on your desk. And that report, at the stage it was in, recommended that the LL site was the most appropriate on a multi-criteria assessment. So the results that have been provided and will allow councillors to put up options will be provided back through to APP for consideration as part of their report. But the information that has been provided through that consultation process is analysed to look at factors relating to age, choice and reason, and along with any other comments made. And so staff have made an assessment about how some certain needs for some particular sites can be met, potentially at a different location. So that information has been will be provided through to APP as through the whole consultation report, and that will feed further through into their multi-criteria assessment that is provided. In regards to your third question, we do have some information, and that's why we suggested we have this item now, so that we can move behind closed doors and we can provide councillors with some further information that has been obtained in that
Thank
regard.
you.
Unless there's any other general questions.
Any other general questions? Councillor Bromman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just noted that in the report on these localities down here in the Australian area, we mentioned the age of people being above 65, and I wonder why, if we're going to do that here, are we going to do that across the whole of the Shire? Because it seems to me we're singling out a group of people, and I don't know if that's discriminatory or not, but I don't see why we're using that in this context.
I would say that throughout the consultation report that you provided, the commentary did detail where the respondent was from and their age group, and I think that it still is relevant in relation to the comments in regards to how people move, and transport and parking were particularly issues that were brought up in both locations. And so being able to cater for particular population or groups or demographics may be guided by having that information there. And so that was why it was included. It's not meant to be discriminatory, it's just meant to give a better picture in regards to the commentary.
So will that be provided for all locations, so throughout the shop?
Are you making reference to the council report or the consultation report?
Consultation report.
The consultation report does detail age demographics against all comments through that report. Amy, yes, she's confirmed.
Yeah. And this one, only one though.
Sorry?
I think this one only mentions one.
Maybe after this meeting we can discuss it because we have got all of that information in the report.
So, okay, so I'll just ask members of public and other staff, wouldn't mind stepping outside and we'll move behind closed doors to discuss